Welcome to Accounting High.
You know, we all know about being an introvert and an extrovert. There's this concept, and I would think I was late to the party with this. Everybody else seems to know it, and I took forever. But the ambivert, have you heard about this? Where you're like both?
Ooh.
So, and I'm like, I feel like I'm a polar ambivert, where on the one hand, I need to be alone in my office with the door locked and a spreadsheet open. I need that in my life, but I also need this, you know, the creative side, which for me is the.
And you want them siloed.
Yeah,
you don't want them to happen on this.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm
I do
1,000% with you. I've never heard of this before, and I just wrote it down.
Extreme on both sides.
Yeah, extreme on both sides. Get me on stage in front of a bunch of people, or doing something creative, or get me alone in a room by myself doing something, you know, very not academic but mathematical. And both of those feed part. If I didn't have, you know, if something happened and I lost either of those, I think I'd miss it.
Grow marketing. It's Thursday. We gon' advertise and chat on Thursday. At Accounting High and Branding Talk is Thursday. And we gon' help you social post so you're in first place. It's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love. If you into social studies, it's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love. If you into social studies. Welcome back, Accounting High. Now it's time for social studies. We'll teach you new creative ways to market old product. Move beyond basics with graph and stats. Some stud you love. Position like Laura Lynn and you'll learn it's not all luck. Oh wait, now it all changed. SEO down, IG up. ICX, Meta, TikTok, hey LinkedIn, Roman V up. If you watch how they post, you'll see it's all authentic and genuine. Grow a following and don't get held back by perfection. Be intentional online, create content. Now that's hot. Strategy is key with social media and pods. Start slow, pick up platform, stick to it and go post. Make a plan to engage with client watering holes. Create a focus brand, be a lead online. It's a digital world with the best ROI. Now create your own ideal client persona. Let's go. Keyword Accounting High and get ready to blow. It's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love. If you into social studies, it's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love. If you into social studies. Follow this show, stay in the know. Thought lead online through networking. Like, share, repost, subscribe, YouTube, comment, engage, create, find your way.
Introducing the star of our show,
Scott Scarano.
We're gonna have a problem here.
We have Greg Kyte here.
We are blessed.
He is a self-proclaimed cartoonist, MC, CPE presenter, stand-up comedian, comptroller,
Yes. Yep.
podcast host, fry sauce connoisseur.
Yes, that too.
He is the master of all things CPE comedy. Greg Kyte.
Right on. So glad to be here.
Was your father a CPA?
No, my dad was a mechanical engineer. His big claim, do you know about Pendleton Wool?
Fantastic.
My dad was the plant manager at the original Pendleton Woolen Mills in Pendleton, Oregon. They had three plants: Pendleton, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. And he ran the original plant in Pendleton, Oregon. Which I'll tell you what, Pendleton, Oregon, it's a thriving metropolis. A great place to spend your summer is in Pendleton, Oregon, man.
So is it Sons of Wool or Sons of Mills?
It would be son of. I like a son of a woolmonger. That's really good. That sounds like an insult. He's son of a woolmonger. That's like what they'd say. Like if we were in like the Dark Ages, they'd be like, "That's son of a woolmonger."
You're on your own boat on that one. Yeah, if we're in the Dark Ages, you're pillaging and roaming in your own wool boat there.
Yeah. But that said, I mean, if we're talking like lineage, my grandfather on my mom's side, he was a financial forecaster at Boeing. So that's not a CPA, but that's in the same ballpark.
What about you?
Interesting. I can't ignore the the comedy, the cartoonist, and the MC. I know that we're supposed to be talking about accounting here. I know that we're supposed to be talking about everything relevant to this podcast. But God, all I want to talk about is the comedy stuff and the cartoonist. So I guess we're going to have to thread the needle there. But first, we should at least very much ask, how were you as a child? Were you a handful to your parents?
No, I was no. My brother was.
Really?
Yeah, definitely had a demon angel situation going on. My brother was.
Wait. And you were the angel?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Interesting.
Absolutely. I was the good kid at home. I was the good kid at school.
Were you always funny growing up? Were you like the class clown?
No, it was funny in elementary school. It's funny. I was so. My nerddom started early. I was in this gifted and talented program where they actually bused us to like this magnet school in the district. So they took all the nerdiest kids from the entire school district and packed us all in one school. And I remember, like, as a kid, there was a bunch of other kids in my elementary school that, like, we were the same kind. We were all the same kids in the same class all through elementary school. And there were kids I thought were hysterical. And I was always like, I wish I was as funny as Mark was. And I just was like, but I'm not, dang it. And then even in high school.
Smart. Yeah.
Well, no, I wasn't even it was a gifted. I was like middle of the road. I was like maybe kind of funny every now and then. And I was like just mediocre amongst these gifted children. And then in high school, I didn't consider myself particularly funny in high school. But I do know, talking to friends now, they're like, oh, you were very funny. So
it was puberty. Like,
so it's all relative, right? It's all relative. You go into the world of accounting and CPAs, and you're the funniest in the room, right?
Which isn't. That's not.
The bar is low with us.
That's not wrong. So I started my professional life not as an accountant, but as a middle school math teacher, and it was during that I started doing stand-up. And then I switched from, I made a midlife career change from middle school math to CPA. And I'd already been doing stand-up. I started at that firm. It was Squire and Company down in Utah County. He knows Squire and Company. Yeah. And as a brand new hire, I just went up to somebody. I was like, hey, what would you think if I did, like, I don't know, like 3 to 7 minutes of stand-up at the beginning of staff meetings every week? And I was like, I'll base it all off the Journal of Accountancy. And I 100% did. I did, like,
really?
Yeah, it was all.
That's how it started.
That's how. Well, no, and then it was weird because on the one hand, you're not getting huge laughs at staff meeting at 9 a.m. at your accounting firm. But then I also had one of the partners pull me aside once and go, I mean, it was a partner of the firm. He's like, the only reason I come to these meetings is because of you. And so I was at least getting through to one person with it. But
don't take this the wrong way. But when I think of a middle school math teacher, I think of a white shirt, a black tie, glasses, and a bald head. Just in my mind, like I've had math teachers in middle school, and that's just don't take it the wrong way, but you look like a middle school math teacher too.
You know what? It follows me around.
Now I know your sleeves are rolled up, but usually it's a button-up shirt that is cut sleeves, right? The short sleeve. Yeah.
Oh no, you're thinking of Mormon missionary. That's 100% Mormon missionary look. Is the short sleeve
missionaries for the church?
That's what did I say? Didn't I? I was a funny teacher.
LDS.
You were to different. It depends on the class because at my middle school it was kind of cool. They tried to be very equitable because at most schools, like the teacher who's been there the longest, they get like the higher level classes, which are usually better behaved and it's easier. At our school, they always made sure everybody had like some high level classes and they had some like remedial classes and everything in between. And what I found is that it was only like with my top students in my top class that I could actually be funny, because anywhere else I'd like crack a joke and they'd be like, oh, the teacher said a joke, it's recess. And then they'd screw around. Like you they were just gone for the rest of the time. So I was pretty stern, like with all of my classes, except like that one class every year. And I would like legit try out bits on them. So I remember one telling him I had this idea that if I ever had, like, for some reason I ever lost both of my legs, like in a landmine kind of situation, that I would install at my home. I wouldn't have like ramps or wheelchairs. I just install a series of monkey bars around my house. And I did this act out where I was like swinging monkey bar to monkey bar and like answered the door, swing, go, hey, how you doing? What's up?
That's a real stoic way of thinking, though. You know, what's the worst that could happen? I lose my legs, but you got a backup plan.
I did well. And the real thing was, if I was
but if you lost your arms, that would suck.
It would
really suck.
It'd be that would. Yeah. But no legs and monkey bars. Like, this was back when Oprah was still on. I was like, that's a ticket to get on Oprah.
She's not on anymore.
Really, so I had a backup plan. The legs went away.
Happen.
Backup to the backup. Yeah.
And
yeah.
How were you going to lose your legs? Like, what was the fear in your mind?
It was just like, if this happened, I don't know how I can't remember how I got there. So
it's not like some phobia.
No. It's just trying to.
I get it. I have those thoughts all the time. Absolutely all the time. Yeah.
It's risk management is what it was. And with that, I was like, I'm in the wrong field with my clearly innate proclivity for risk management. I need to get out of teaching middle school math and find something else, not just another career where I'm better suited for, but also a better career where the dream of home ownership might actually become a reality. Those two things.
Good segue though. So growing up, did you fancy yourself an accountant, a math, or actually a comedian? Like, at what point did you decide to actually take a path? Right? Like, was that the end game, to be a teacher at first?
Well, okay. You asked earlier, and we totally ignored you, what my mom did.
Yeah.
My mom was a pharmacist. So she sold drugs on a corner of my hometown in Mount Lake Terrace, Washington. Legally, but she was selling drugs on a corner.
Okay. And we've talked about this in the past. I've sold drugs as well, so I have more relation to your mom than your father. Yeah.
Right. Well, hey,
you have to serve. We have a really good bit here that me and Zachary are working on, because he was serving at the same time I was serving, but I was serving for the devil. He was serving for the higher power.
Yeah.
The Church of Jesus Christ.
For the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah. At some point, we're going to get to a message of hope and peace during this episode. I'm hoping. But here's the thing. So my mom, not only was she a pharmacist, she owned her own pharmacy. And I started working for her when I was 14 years old, because it was a partnership. She was like the pharmacy side. The other partners were supposed to be like the retail end side of all the other crap that they sell at a drugstore for whatever reason. And as many partnerships do, like within a year, they hated each other. And so there was
it sounds like me and Ackerman. That sounds like me and Ackerman.
Is that
after about a year, we hate each other. This is why Zachary's on. Yeah.
So, but this was, I mean, it was so toxic. This is what the day I started working for my mom. I was 14 years old. I think it was summertime, and I was just hanging out at the drugstore because there wasn't any school. And her partners were like, screw you, screw this place, we're out of here. They gave the middle finger, they walked out the store. My mom was like, hey, so looks like you work here now. So there's the cash register, get going. And I started working there, but very quickly. So I was 14 when I started working there. I think I was 16 when she actually started having me do the books for her. For her store. And this was back in the 80s. So I was working on a 13-column analysis pad, writing in stuff with a pencil. Totaling my columns this way and making sure they add together down here, doing all that. So that, and the crazy thing is I very much enjoyed the book.
You were a teenager in the 80s?
I was a teenager in the 80s.
Wow. I wasn't even born yet. Actually, I was born.
On my drive up here, I was listening to Men at Work. That's my that and the Police. So that's where I came from. So
I'm a child of the 80s, I'll be honest. Like I was born.
Yeah. Well, it's, you can find, there's good stuff.
What was the biggest takeaway for you from working for your mom at that small business?
Don't start a small business. That was like legit. Just because it was her experience was so rough, because part of what happened in that first year, that first toxic year with these partners, is because, again, my mom, her responsibilities were run the pharmacy. And it's one of those things in that kind of establishment. It's definitely an 80-20 kind of thing. 80% of the revenue of the entire business comes from the pharmacy. And all the other crap that you see at a CVS, they love to sell that, and it's great, but that's not the meat and potatoes of the store. So my mom was supposed to be just in charge of making the pharmacy side run right. Her other partners were supposed to do very important things like remit payroll taxes and things like this that they did not do. And so as soon as they walked away, she starts getting these notices from the IRS, and her business just tanked because of, and there was a bunch of other just legal things in terms of how stuff was tied up with those partners.
I think if she would have had a CPA that could guide her through the process the whole way.
Yeah.
She might have made a go at
it. She may well have, yeah, because that screwed her, and then getting caught up on that stuff because the money, and I don't think that they embezzled the money, but I think it was just reinvested in bad things that weren't financially sound.
Like if you do find something out, that's a good topic for your new podcast.
That would be, but it's too. I mean, at this point, that stuff's so buried under years. But anyway, so my mom spent 10 years of her life, and then she couldn't afford to hire another pharmacist. So now, and legally, a drugstore can't be open without a pharmacist on site. And so to make ends meet, she's working 12-hour days, Monday through Friday, 10 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday. And that's her life for 10 years. And at the end, and she, and her whole thing is she really, for many reasons, didn't want to declare bankruptcy with this pharmacy. And that was her entire goal, was just like, I want to be able to feed my children and not declare bankruptcy. And after 10 years, she didn't declare bankruptcy. She just closed. And a lot of times back right before when she closed her store, a lot of times what would happen is you'd sell your records to, it's kind of similar to, I think, what some CPA firms do. If you're just closing, you sell your book of business. They could do that with pharmacies too. But right when she was closing up, that was when that like chain pharmacies became the norm, and they're like, no, we're going to get that business. So she just shut the door.
Like we're lagging in the CPA world, in the firm world, but at some point there's going to be chain. We've got H&R Blocks, we've got the pilots of the world, cropping up. I think we're going to start seeing that too. It's already a trend that's kind of starting on the ground level. But as it relates to firm ownership too, I think it's hard. It's hard to have a small business without a support system and without any kind of outside help in the for the finance function, for the back office. So you, as a child, were steered away from something like that. I think, Zachary, in the opposite end, you were pulled right in. Like Zachary, you grew up, your dad has owned a firm. You are now, almost running the firm, or you're part of the firm, and it didn't steer you away. So it's an interesting contrast too, because you could be a pharmacist right now, Greg, if it was a different experience. I could. People ask me that all the time. Yeah. When I was working there, like, so are you? Because I started college when I was working there too, and they're like, so you're studying to be a pharmacist? And I was like, absolutely not. There's not, and it was one of those weird things where they're like, dude, your mom's standing right there. Don't say it like that. Yeah. And I'm like, what was it about the books then? Like, because is that what hooked you, or was there anything about that stuck with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing the books, and again, it was the precision of what you were doing. There's a right answer.
Yeah.
You don't, there's like at the end of whatever the tasks were, and I can't even remember what I was doing, reconciling something on these huge spreadsheets. But A, you knew that there was a right answer. B, you knew that as long as you spent enough time that you were going to get it done right. Because if again, we're talking these 13 column analysis pads, and if the numbers don't match where they're supposed to match, you got to go back and do it again. And I think just the intense left brain side of working with that quantity of numbers, and again, with being absolutely sure that you were doing it right, that stuff clicked with me a lot.
Well, so in all seriousness though, there is no right answers with comedy. Comedy is so subjective, and comedy is so open to interpretation. And there is absolutely no right answers. And there's, with enough time, it could still be done wrong, right? Like with enough time of doing comedy, it could still be done wrong. So how do you balance both of those?
Well, the funny thing is there is a right answer, and the right answer is, did people laugh? And then and which is why for me comedy has been just, it's this thing that's it's strangely inescapable for me, because if I go to a club and if I have a fantastic show, I'm killing it, then I go, that was the best thing ever. I got to come back here and I got to do that again. If I go to a club and I have a crappy show and I feel really bad about, it's just meh, or, whatever happened and it didn't connect, I go, oh my gosh, I have to go back there and do it again. Cause I feel the only thing that can wash away the shame and and just the bad juju that I got from that set is going back and having a great set. And so one way or another, so there is a right answer. It's like, did I get that immediate spontaneous feedback? So
sounds like a gambler justifying their nights at the card table, right?
This
you have a really good night, you got to go back. You have a bad night, you got to go back.
Yeah, that's yeah.
When you're reconciling the books, if you weren't happy with it, you would undo the reconciliation.
I would pull that 13 column, I'd light it on fire, whoosh, and then I'd go, we're doing it again. Got to get this right.
So laughter is a universal language too. Laughter is
and as is math. I mean, that's and as is accounting. I mean, you can't get a culture that doesn't have accounting. You can't get a culture that doesn't do math. Can't get a culture that doesn't laugh, except you, Russia. Yes.
You had a mom who was full of integrity. That's what I got from this story.
Absolutely, yeah.
And accountants have to have high integrity.
Yeah.
And so I think you did learn that from your mom.
Yeah. Integrity and work ethic. I mean,
Greg, you've got that. And I just met you for the first time, like in person in Denver, and we're all going out and hanging out and partying. I'm going to have to go to bed early. I'm not going out. I'm not drinking. I'm going to.
Really?
Yeah. And you were MC and you did a beautiful job, but that's work ethic and that's integrity because Gusto's paying you to be there. So you're not going to f around on their dime and, go out and party. And I thought that was admirable. Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, that's, and also, I appreciate that. And it's one of those things too, that even folds back into what I said about doing stand-up comedy, where it's like, if you don't do well, it's hard to get that feeling of failure off of you. So there's a lot driving me to make sure, like at Gusto, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was saying, that it was funny, that I had setups for who's coming up next and funny things to talk about.
You have a very short memory when you're performing. Very short memory.
Incredibly short. And that's one of the things too, is that even other conferences that I emceed, they didn't have a teleprompter. These guys, Gusto had a teleprompter, but even with that, they needed all that stuff like weeks before the day of. So I was like, okay, I just gotta, like, between the different speakers, I gotta sit there going, okay, what are the announcements I need to say? What are the funny things I need to say? What's the name of the guy coming up? Is it Scott?
It's scientific.
Because I want to make sure I don't forget his name. So, but fortunately, so I was up super late that night making sure I had all that stuff prepared. But it was mostly because I didn't want to, because I hate failing at stuff like that, because it's so hard to.
And I'm sure you've got stories of times you were extra prepared and you think everything's going to go well, and it's a failure. Like that's not scientific. That's just
no. But you're right. I mean, but also, I mean, you were saying, there's the precision of accounting. There's the versus the art of comedy. And I will say that's one of the things that I found is true about me. And, we all know about being an introvert or an extrovert. There's this concept, and I would think I was late to the party with this. Everybody else seems to know it, and I took forever. But the ambivert, have you heard about this? Where you're like both?
Ooh.
So, and I'm like, I feel like I'm a polar ambivert, where on the one hand, I need to be alone in my office with the door locked and a spreadsheet open. I need that in my life, but I also need this, the creative side, which for me is
and you want them siloed.
You
don't want them to happen on this.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm
I do
1,000% with you. I've never heard of this before, and I just wrote it down.
Extreme on both sides.
Yeah, extreme on both sides. Get me on stage in front of a bunch of people, or doing something creative, or get me alone in a room by myself doing something, very not academic but mathematical, and both of those feed part. If I didn't have, if something happened and I lost either of those, I think I'd miss it. So
Yeah, that's 1,000% going to be the title of this episode, the Ambivert.
Nice.
I think that's beautiful. So
Right.
you talk about the art. There's an essence to human interactions that can't be quantified. I tried to sound smart there. I don't know if that landed. Or
You
not.
did totally. That there's an essence that cannot be quantified. That's the art of human interaction.
Yeah.
Like it. That was good.
Yeah. So
Nailed it.
So let's kind of show your journey to where you are now.
CPA startup.
We've listed out, and
CPA startup.
Yeah. So when did you decide you were going to become a CPA?
It was in 2006. I think it was. Yeah, I think 2006. And I was well established as a teacher, but like I said, I didn't really enjoy the job. You hear people who become teachers who are like, oh, I was an accountant and all I was doing was crunching numbers and I didn't feel like I was doing anything positive for the world. And I was like, no more of this. So I went back to school. I became a teacher. I was the exact opposite, where I go, you know what? These kids kind of drive me up a wall. Parents are even worse. I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm going to be an accountant where I know what I'm doing. And actually, I mean, it goes back to the precision of what we do. One of the things that drove me nuts as a teacher is you could give them a test, but you never know for sure if they just studied the right things, if they guessed well, if they cheated off their neighbor. You never knew if you really got that information into that brain. And that was one of the things that drove me nuts. So, and again, so I didn't really like the job, and the pay was not good. So I was like, well, and when I went to college, like I said, I did bookkeeping for my mom. When I went to college, I was like, well, I'm great at math and I enjoyed bookkeeping. Which one should I do? Should I be a math major or should I be an accounting major? And I chose math major. And I after a few years of being a teacher, I was like, I chose wrong. Let's go back and do the other one. And so I went back and did the other one. As a human, it's tough. And I like to say, I've said this before on the podcast, it's about money until it's not. You know, to a degree, you figured that out. And I use Blake as an example of that too. Like, it's just different people, follow maybe their passion or follow what they think they should be doing and realize I got to make money to live. I want to actually live a normal life. Yeah. So I think because I'm half Jewish, I never experienced that because it was always about money with me. It's never not about money. Are you drawing a diagram here? I am.
Is this like Maslow's hierarchy?
No.
The quadrants?
This is what I had, and I'm not sure if this is gonna translate. This is my 2x2 quadrant right here, where you can have it.
Fun,
you gotta
not fun.
Is your job fun or not fun? Is there money or is there no money? And what quadrant are you in? Teaching for me was in the not fun, no money quadrant. So it's like,
I like this.
There's no reason to be here. And the idea, like if it's fun but there's no money, that's you doing your comedy. Passion.
That's stand up.
That's stand up for me. That's exactly what that is for me. And if it's money and not fun, you're a soulless banker on Wall Street. But the goal of life is to get to the fun and money part. And I feel like I've been able to get there. But here's the cool thing. So it goes back to what you were saying is like the silos, having the comedy and the accounting in the two silos, where I feel like what I've been able to do, and this is even the art of business is you got to have a niche. Like whatever you got to specialize in something, or else you're not going to make any money at all. And for me, it ended up being okay. I can be funny and I'm an accountant. So and then you find that Venn diagram of humor and accounting, and there's like less than 12 other people who are in that spot. And then all of a sudden, like what you do, back to what you were saying, Scott, it's like it's a very low bar too. So if you're in that very, very tiny space, whatever you do, people who are in the industry are very interested in it. So that's why we can have that's why
it gives you a lot of space to freedom. If you're kind of pioneering something, so to speak.
Yeah. So it was 5 years ago. I think mostly just out of interest and even a little bit of mental health, I started doing cartoons just for me, just to exercise that creative side of me. And I did a
I
couple
love this story.
All
Yeah.
yourself, right?
I do those all myself, all by hand.
Yeah.
I haven't even. I'm like intentionally ultra lo-fi on the like low tech lo-fi
Yeah.
on those. But I did a few of them, and then I was like going, I wonder if anybody would buy these for me. So I sent them off to Tom Hood at Accounting Today,
Oh yeah.
and I'm like, hey, what would you think about buying these for me and running them on Accounting Today? And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, hard pass from Accounting Today. So then I go to Caleb Newquist at Going Concern. I go, hey, what, you want to buy these for me and run them on Going Concern? And Caleb's like, yeah, no, not at all. And then and I go, well, it was worth the try. And then a couple weeks later, Caleb, like he contacts me. He's like, hey, I thought about some more, and yeah, we want to run them. And so all of a sudden, I'm not a great artist. I've got friends who are
You're
fantastic.
the Gary Larson of accounting, right?
What's that?
The Gary Larson or the Charles Schultz? Gary Larson's Far Side, right?
Yeah, I think I could say I'm the Gary Larson of accounting, although he's got some accounting cartoons that are actually very, very good. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, if you've got this niche and I've got this thing where it's like, oh, I just, threw something against the wall and it stuck because I'm in this really sticky niche where I've got people who are far more talented than me that I know that are like, if you could sell cartoons like on a regular basis, I kind of have a whenever you get one, we'll pay you for it kind of thing. They would lose their minds about that. And me, I'm just like, I do comedy. I'm an accounting. Will you do this?
Do you have a
Yes.
process for these cartoons? Are you producing a lot of them, or do you have just a stockpile?
I have a stockpile there because I do them by hand. They're pretty labor intensive, but
Yeah.
again, I get something out of that because it's kind of like
You're alone
Yeah.
in your room drawing. Like that's part
Yeah.
of your, like you can be in front of a group and as an MC, but you could also be alone in a room doing this
Yeah.
as well.
exactly, and I love it, and I kind of relate it. You know how a lot of people like the adult coloring books kind of thing. That's been a big thing in the last decade or so. I think it's the same kind of thing I get from that, where it's just like I just get to sit and draw, and it's nice. It's nice for me. But in terms of a process of coming up with the ideas, a lot, it's just like with stand-up, where out in my car, I usually have just a drawing pad in my book bag that I just keep with me, and if inspiration hits, I bust it out and I do a little doodle. And the nice thing is that you don't need too many. I have a backlog of ideas that I need to get to make cartoons. So the answer is both of what you said. I do have. I keep a collection of ideas that I need to get back around to turn them into cartoons. But I also do have. I think I've got probably close to 100 cartoons that I've published so far. That it's just like with the Far Side. I had a Far Side desk calendar last year, and I swear I've seen I have the complete works of Gary Larson at home. I swear I've seen every single cartoon that has, but it was maybe every other day that it was like, oh, I remember this one, and the other ones go, never seen this one before. So I think it's the same thing with mine, where I publish one and people are like, I don't know if this is old or if it's new, but I liked it. Well,
in context, you usually, the ones that stick with you are the ones that really would resonate in your, in your point of view or your life. Like, oh wow, I love this because of that. Or sometimes you don't even draw the connection, and then another one later in life, you have a different perspective, and then you connect with that one too for a different reason, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, that goes with the draw of inspiration. As you think of something that really resonates with you, and it may not be the right time to release it or to do it, but you've got the idea there, and then later you build on that, and then it becomes like with these cartoons. You've also told me the story where the Christmas cards, right? Like, that's a great story as well. Do you care to share that one too? That's
and the Christmas card story is even getting better. I think it's better. It's even gotten better than when I told it to you. So I did these cartoons. And most and pretty much all of them got published through Going Concern.
Exposure drafts.
Exposure drafts.
Right?
Yeah. You can go. I got my Instagram set up for that, so you can go to @exposure drafts and see. Maybe not the entire catalog, but it's getting close to the entire catalog that I put on there. So I've been, and then out of the blue, I get this.
Do you do that daily on Instagram, or do you do it?
I shoot for twice a week to put something out on Instagram twice a week. And then out of the blue, this was over a year, maybe about a year and a half ago, I get this email from a lady going, "Hey, I'd love to, I want to talk to you about licensing one of your cartoons." And I'm like going, "Oh, finally, a textbook publisher realized that these would be great in an accounting textbook." But I don't know if that's what it was. So I emailed her back going, "Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that. What are you, what do you plan on using it for?" And she was like, "Well, I run a little firm and I was thinking about taking it and changing it into a Christmas card and giving it to my staff and maybe a few of my clients." And then I'm going, "You should have just done it. Why didn't you?" Yeah. But I'm like going, okay, for that sort of thing, I typically charge $100 or so, just to be like, okay, it's so I got it. So, but I did. I charged her $100 to license and I drafted up some bogus little thing of going, "I, Greg Kyte, do hereby authorize so and so to with the whatever," and so. But then I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea to make Christmas," because I've got a handful of Christmas themed cartoons that I've done over there, and they've gotten good response when I've put them out there. So I was like, I'm gonna start doing Christmas cards with my. So then I'm like, I got to start doing more of these and posting them on social media more. So I was really diligent in 2020 about posting those, just getting more awareness of my cartoons back out there. And I even found a dude named, his first name's Rubik, his last name is unpronounceable, and he already was doing like cards. He has this whole like accounting greeting cards. Mm-hmm. And I found him and I was like, "Hey, I've been wanting to do that." And he's like, "Cool, I can make your stuff into cards." I'm like going, "Cool," because I don't know how to do that. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll take care of all the back end stuff. You just give me your stuff and I'll make." And I go, "That's amazing.
Awesome.
This is so easy." And I was like, and it turned out I would make, after taxes, I realized I'd be making about $1 a card, but that's great because you get Ernst & Young buying 100,000 cards. I just paid $100,000, right? Cha-ching. So I'm like going, let's do this, pedal to the metal. And listen, by the end of 2020, I sold 9 cards through this guy's site.
Round up, you made $10.
$10 after taxes. And then what? But I think you got the first part of that story. It was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Do cards." Not a good idea, actually, after all. But because I was so consistent posting stuff online, I've now had 7 different commission cartoons where like companies have come to me and say, "Hey, we want to sponsor a cartoon through you to blast out on social media and for you to make for us." And I'll tell you, that has been incredibly lucrative and a lot of fun to do. And actually, I've got one coming up. Like I sold 2 cartoons to Divi. Divi?
Oh yeah.
Do you know Divi?
I do know Divi.
They came out of the blue. We're like, "Hey, we think we want you to do a couple cartoons." And I go, "Shut up! You're in Draper, which is just halfway between Zach and I." And they're like, "Cool, here, let us throw it. We have a bunch of money in our budget left over from 2020. We gotta get rid of it. Here, you take all of it." And I'm like, okay. And then, and I actually have a meeting with them on Thursday.
They're a cool company and they're doing lots of great stuff. What was your very first podcast in the accounting industry that you were on?
It was the Thrivecast with Jason.
And what year? That had to have been like 2010.
2011.
2011?
We started our first episode. So it was a monthly podcast. Our first episode dropped in July of 2011. Okay. I met Jason in January of 2011. And the weird thing was too about from my side of that podcast is that I had been thinking, man, it'd be cool to get like a funny business podcast going. So I actually pitched, and so at that time I was doing improv comedy as well as stand-up comedy. And I pitched the idea to one of my improv buddies who I knew was well read in business books. And so I like sent him a message through Facebook Messenger. It was like, "Hey, I got this idea. I think it'd be really cool if we did a business podcast together. What do you think?" And literally the next day, Jason calls me and it's like, "Hey, I want to do this business podcast. I want you on it because you're funny."
The universe aligns, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I was like, yes, absolutely. And the funny thing was, the guy that I messaged, he never responded to that message ever. He clearly was not very turned on by the idea. So,
well,
but yeah,
speaking of people not responding, Tom Hood was supposed to be on at some point, and we got he never responded back either. So I thought of that one too. Yeah,
I was trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. But
he didn't take up your cartoon. Sorry, I wanted to bring that up too, because when I do open up accounting today, I see cartoons, but I don't see exposure draft. I see some other guy. Yeah.
We were too. I was too edgy. That's
really
too edgy. That's
Oh, wow.
that's the story of my life. Stuff I do too edgy. Like I think one of the ones I sent
it serves you well though. That's a niche, right? That's
it
part
is.
of that's part of your niche. But
one of
it's got to be a balance too, right? That's why I have Zachary on, because if I go too far, then at least I have a sounding board to know the guest is the balance all the time. Zachary is, I think, a little too far on one end. And so it works out pretty well. And I think the contrast is like the black and white or the night and day, however you want to.
Yeah.
one of my favorite all-time episodes of any podcast was Thrivecast. Early on, it was like 2012, I'm guessing, maybe 2011. I don't know, somewhere in that range. I tried to find it, I couldn't find it, but you and Jason were talking about niches and perfecting those, and he was taking experiences from his creative agent, creative accounting firm that he has. But it's like one of the classics. You can still go back and listen to that. Like I listened to it like a year ago or so, and it's still fantastic.
Nice. Cool.
It's really impressive. So there's some good stuff in some of those old podcasts.
Yeah. We hammered on niches a lot in that, in the, it's kind of like, personal finance gurus, they have two drums. It's like make a budget, get out of debt. That's the entire story. And I feel like it wasn't quite that simple with Thrival, or with the business of accounting. But the biggest thing is you got to find a niche. If you haven't done that, you're not, that's like the starting point for all of it. And if you haven't found it, and even funny enough, when I was out in Greenville one time for one of the, Jason does the annual Deeper Weekend conference out in Greenville, South Carolina. And I was out there once, and it's a small crew. We're all kind of doing everything. So I was out there to MC, and I'm helping set up the venue too. And so we're in this, Jason finds these really cool venues, and we're in there setting up. And this dude who runs a jewelry shop across the street from the venue, he just wanders in going, "Hey, what's going on over here? It looks like you guys are getting ready for something cool." And I go, "Yeah, it's an accounting conference." He goes, "Accountants, huh? I need a good one." And I go, "Oh my gosh, this." And Jason was on a ladder right next to me, hanging something up on the ceiling. I go, "This guy right here, he is the premier accountant in all of Greenville, South Carolina. A good one is this guy." And Jason's like, "No, not at all. I don't do jewelry stores. I do creative businesses." And he's like, "Greg, knock it off." And I'm like, "I was trying to help." And I did not.
Well, that's a good point too. Like, because that happens a lot with accountants. Like, I know this great accountant, and all of a sudden you become the accountant for everybody. "Oh, my daughter needs her taxes done. Let me bring them to you," who works with minors, like I'm an accountant for minors. I don't do minors, right? I actually do the guys who wear hard hats. Not
right. In the
girls,
coal miners. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Funny story. That's this guy for me.
Yeah, that is.
And because I don't do, because
Zachary will take it all on.
I'm a comptroller. I do corporate accounting. That's my thing. That's all I do. I have a basic knowledge of anything apart from that. I don't have the time or capacity to do taxes beyond the ones that I already do, which is very few. And so when people come to me and they go, "I really need accounting help," or "I really need tax help. Do you know somebody?" I go, "Oh, Zach Call. He's amazing." So he's my funnel for everybody. It's like,
I did do your tax return one year.
You did do my tax return.
I did
1
do
year
your tax
after H&R Block.
It was
Yeah,
your niche could be taxes for comedians, right? That's a
horrible niche.
Don't
because they make no money. They're like, "What's estimated taxes?" and they have no money to pay you. So
that's a good segue too, because it's like comedians can diversify, they can do a lot of things, but usually they don't do well until they break it into Hollywood, or they get a writing gig for a TV show or something like that. That's how they can kind of pay the bills. But in your experience, did you ever intend to do this to make money, or you did it for the fun? Because you are making money doing it, but in the accounting world.
And I've been doing, so here's the thing. I've been doing stand-up comedy for 20, this summer will be 20 years since I first started doing stand-up. And absolutely, when I first started it, I wanted to get on SNL.
Sure.
That it was that kind of thing of like, I want to, but that I also started it when I was in the quagmire of the wrong quadrant of my
Right.
professional life. And so yeah, I always wanted to, when I started, it was very much, I'd love to see this become my thing. The difficulty with that is that whenever you pull, well, I went to, in 2012, I went to a comedy conference festival. That's what they call it in comedy land, not a conference. It's a festival.
A comedy conference festival.
It was a comedy conference in Atlanta. And there was a buddy I knew that I'd worked with several times out here in Utah. He's a nationally touring comedian, does it full time. That's his gig. And at this comedy festival, we're waiting for a shuttle bus or a Uber or something like that to get to a venue. And we're just chatting. He goes, Greg, man, I had the best year of my life this year. I think it's finally coming together for me as a comedian. I made $32,000 this year as a comedian. And granted, this is 2012, so it was 10 years ago, but still, me doing the stuff that I'm
adjusted
doing
for inflation right now, that was probably $100,000.
Right, exactly. But the crazy thing was all these little side hustles that I had between the podcast and this and then the emceeing and all that sort of stuff. I was like going, I almost made $32,000 this year doing it too. And you just go, so enjoying what I do and making a decent amount of money, it'd be very difficult to like flush all that down the drain and start, surfing couches to try to get a gig here and there, to scratch together a living. So at this point, not so much. But what stand-up comedy does give me is it gives me a pipe dream, because I still do lots of stuff, and you never know what you're going to do that's going to take off
too. So the way that I see it is, you've got what can pay the bills. You've got, I think the comptroller thing is kind of like a joke to you. Like you still like to say that as a joke, but
yeah,
if you identify yourself as being a comedian, as being an MC, as being a cartoonist, it's not about the money. It's how you identify it, and then you can become a better one, because that's so you go to sleep at night knowing that's what I am, and you wake up the next day writing jokes, and it doesn't, you're not doing it for the, the stardom or the huge like pipe dream, right? Well, I mean, the pipe dream is still there, and if it happens, it's still part of who you are, and you're not selling yourself on the street. You're not serving fast food, right? Or you're not you're not flipping burgers.
Right. Well, here's how I look at it. Well, and it goes back to what you said. It's about the money till it's not. And the fortunate thing is I've got this great gig as my day job where I can just bail out without telling anybody that I'm heading, I'm driving 45 minutes away to spend who knows how long.
Design your life. Yeah.
That has nothing to do with what they're paying me for. I have that kind of freedom. I have that day job, which is fantastic. It pays the bills. It gives me health insurance. They've allowed me to invest in the company. So I've got, a future in terms of that stuff. So
I've got a title.
I've got a title that I get to make up myself, which is why it's comptroller. Mm-hmm. And so I've got that, but then I've got this other thing. It's Nassim Taleb is an author, wrote a book called The Black Swan. You probably never heard about it. Probably never read it. It's a horrible book to read through. It's great, but it's written like it's like very much train of thought writing where it's like, okay, I get to the point. It's almost like reading his journal or something like that. But one of the things that stuck out to me from that very meandering book is because he's a Wall Street guy, and he talked about this thing that he calls the barbell strategy, which is also a very bad misnomer for what he's talking about. But it's a way for investing your money where he says you got two extreme. I mean, again, we're talking two extremes, kind of like the introvert extrovert thing. He says when you're investing your money, invest 85% of it in the most secure way that you possibly can. Like something that's short of a zombie apocalypse, you're going to be making a return, even if it's not you're not going to knock anybody's socks off. Just save with 85% of your investable money. And then he said the other 15%, you're taking all the long shots. You're investing in anything that might blow up and become, you're looking for the next Apple with that other 15%. And it's like, you're probably going to lose you're going into that going, I'm probably going to lose all this money, but hopefully one will hit so big that it makes up for all the, the 14% that I lost. I'll have that 1% that hits big enough to make up for that 14%. And then you reallocate it with that 15%. It's called the barbell strategy. I feel like I do that with my professional life, where I've got 85% of my work is this day job that's very stable, pays the bills. And that's where I don't have to worry. That gives me the freedom to do what you're saying, Scott, and pursue this other stuff out of love and curiosity. And
if it hits,
and
that's your barbell. That's the other side of your barbell.
Exactly.
And that could overproduce the other one. And you got your passion on that side too. And I love that analogy, because I read Anti-Fragile. That was the book that I read of his, and I'm sure it's not huge either. Back to your point of, I think you can go to sleep at night knowing the work that you do isn't draining you. You probably get a lot of fulfillment out of that, and it makes sense. It's logical. You could spend 85% of your time doing it, or make sure that 85% of your income is coming from that. And so it's how we spend our time, and also where am I going with this point here? That's because I'm trying to drive a conclusion, because we're going to have to hop off too. But I think that's a beautiful way to end it, as far as that analogy of the barbell. So I can only aspire to one day see you be like with the heavy lifting show. What am I thinking of, where the guy's got the barbell and the tiger, and he's in a circus, right?
Like the freak show, the strongman freak show.
So your next comedian show will be that, right? You won't be wearing the suit, the Mormon outfit. You'll be wearing the Speedo. You'll have your tiger, and you'll be doing your thing, and that might be 100% of you at that point.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when the pipe dream becomes the reality. So that would be the really interesting discussion, is after it gets there, then what's your identity, right? Like that's where you've got people who have made it big, and they've got everything that they have hoped for. And some of them turn to the dark side after that. And then, like Robin Williams, and so there's a lot of sad stories in the ones that are very prolific and very talented. I think you're one of those. I mean, you're very talented. I don't know about the prolificacy, but you've been really at this for a while. So I'd be interested to see, once you get there, what happens. I don't know where I'm going with that, but that's
since we're wrapping up here, Scott, we have to talk about two things really quickly.
First
of all, Oh My Fraud. What got you back into the podcast?
Yeah. Well, a couple. So with Jason, I love Jason. He's like a brother to me. And the crazy thing is, every month when we would get together to do our podcast, it seriously felt like a play date that like our moms had set up for each other. And we would, it was a blast. It was tons of fun. I chose to leave the podcast, not because I was disappointed with it at all, but I felt like we'd done it. Like 10 years, 120 podcasts. Well, and actually it was after 8.5 years. I was like, I think we did. I gave my 18 months notice to Jason that I was like, I think we need to wrap this up at 10 years. That feels right. And the other thing was, you just get too busy. I've got so many side things. Like you brought up my fry sauce.
The next thing
my fry sauce company. Okay. So I've got all these things that I'm trying to do. And eventually you go, okay, I don't have enough time. I need to stop doing certain things. So I was like, okay, this podcast has been a blast. We conquered it. It's done. I did it. I think it's time to go find other cool things to do now. And so I left the podcast. And I think it was even in that 18 months, Caleb Newquist contacted me. It was like, hey man, well, it didn't contact me. We worked together regularly for the webinars. And he was like, hey, just wanted to, what would you think if we started a fraud podcast? I'm going, dude, I'm just quitting a podcast to not do podcasts. And I was like, it sounds like a great idea, but I'm going to pass on that unless you tell me how we're going to like conquer the world. How are we going to conquer the world through this podcast? And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And I thought that was my very nice way of saying, leave me alone. I don't want to do a podcast. And then a few months later, it comes back to me and goes, okay, I figured out how this podcast is going to change the world. Blake Oliver's got a way for people to earn continuing education by listening to podcasts. True crime podcasts are the biggest thing on the planet right now. We're going to have a true crime podcast.
Not just true crime. The top two genres is true crime and comedy.
Okay.
That is
you go.
by far the top two that most people listen to. You guys are blending that.
Right. Similar. And there's another true crime podcast that I listen to that's kind of like, I want to be that, but with fraud. And it's one called My Favorite Murder. And it's a couple of comedians that just tell stories about murder. And the idea that people can earn the CPE by doing it, I go, okay, that's a whole new thing. And the freedom that we have. And that's one of the things we off people because our language isn't so clean on the podcast, but that's part of why I'm doing it too. Well, and the funny thing is, it's not like the webinars because Caleb and I do fraud webinars through CPA Academy. We got a sponsor, but it's a different kind of sponsorship because with these podcasts, we're able to create a podcast, create our product, and go out and say, do you want to sponsor this? We created this with all the freedom that we wanted to have. Do you want in on this? Instead of going, hey, do you want a podcast? Okay, we're going to do it. Tell us what we need to do to make you happy. It's the other way around. Right. And having that kind of freedom is the other thing that drew me to the podcast. So
that's awesome.
And it's another pipe dream, like you were saying.
Any listeners who hasn't checked out Oh My Fraud, you should go check it out. They have their first episode out. By the time this airs, they
they'll probably have 5 episodes, 10 episodes out at that point.
Yeah, we're our publication. Our editorial calendars every 2 weeks. We're dropping a new podcast.
And then what else do you have a website for your fry sauce company? Tell us about with fry sauce.
Okay, so here's what happened. I love fry sauce. My girlfriend loves fry sauce. My kids love fry sauce. We're just in my kitchen, we made tater tots or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we gotta, we can't have tater tots without some fry sauce. So we whip up, and I'm going to give away the secret recipe for fry sauce. 2 parts mayonnaise, 1 part ketchup. That's like a toddler can make the product that I'm wanting.
It's like Russian dressing, right?
It's like that, but not nasty.
It's not 2 parts.
So,
yeah.
So I think it was my girlfriend who was making up, just mixing the 2 ingredients together. And somebody says fry sauce. That's Utah's treasure. And then it was like all of us had this light bulb go on going, that's an amazing name for a fry sauce company. And we're like, oh, did we just start a fry sauce company? So we did. And our whole idea is to do like gift, like to make the product that literally anyone can make, but to package it in like gift quality bottles where you could you could take it home from Utah as a souvenir.
You'd sell it in the airport.
You'd sell it in the airport. Right.
Yeah.
You could send it. I mean, that's another thing. If you got if you got somebody who's serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they're in North Carolina and they're homesick, you don't want to go send them a cheap plastic bottle of fry sauce. You want to send them a nice glass bottle of fancy souvenir quality glassware fry sauce to go, we miss you, and home is still here. That's what you need to do. That's what we're trying to do.
For anybody who
got to make it addictive somehow, and that's where the fries come in, right? Like that's the addictiveness of it. That's where people will pay the big bucks.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I'm at the point where it's hard for me to have tater tots or French fries without fry sauce because like ketchup just is teasing me at this point.
Well, it's the contrast of the sweet and the I don't know how to describe mayonnaise, but that's
mayonnaise
creamier. It makes it smoother than just the sweetness of ketchup. I always mix my mayonnaise with mustard, but that's just me. I don't like the sweet, so I what's that called when you mix is it mayo stirred or mustard anise?
Dijonnaise. They sell that.
Dijonnaise, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to wrap it up. I got a call that I'm late for.
Okay.
But yes, utfrysauce.com. Which is we sell so far. We don't have any product except T-shirts and a sweet blog, a sweet foodie blog. But eventually we're actually gonna get our.
Tell me what you're doing with your girlfriend.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. And if it wasn't fun, we'd walk away from it. But we're having a blast, not making a product.
And for the listeners who own accounting firms or who are working in accounting firms, take a 15% risk in your firm and start doing some things that are unique. One of them might blow up. They might be that fry sauce for you.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Scott. Thanks, Zachary.
Thank you, guys. That was fun.
Grow marketing. it's Thursday. We gon' advertise and chat on Thursday. At Accounting High and Branding Talk is Thursday. And we gon' help you social post so you're in first place. It's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love. If you into social studies, it's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love if you into social studies. Welcome back, Accounting High. Now it's time for social studies. We'll teach you new creative ways to market old product. Move beyond basics with graph and stats. Some stud you love. Position like Laura Lynn and you'll learn it's not all luck. Oh wait, now it all changed. SEO down, IG up. ICX, Meta, TikTok, hey LinkedIn, Roman V up. If you watch how they post, you'll see it's all authentic and genuine. Grow a following and don't get held back by perfection. Be intentional online, create content, now that's hot. Strategy is key with social media and pods. Start slow, pick up platform, stick to it and go post. Make a plan to engage with client watering holes. Create a focus brand, be a lead online. It's a digital world with the best ROI. Now create your own ideal client persona, let's go. Keyword Accounting High and get ready to blow. It's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love if you into social studies. It's time for social studies, accounting, content hub, LinkedIn marketing, or X. So come join our social club. Is it Twitter? Is it X? Shit, now I can't keep up. So comment, follow, love if you into social studies. Follow this show, stay in the know. Thought lead online through networking. Like, share, repost, subscribe, YouTube, comment, engage, create, find your way.